Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day and that you're looking after yourselves and one another. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Friday, July 26th. We are here today to discuss a very important album that has just dropped today. We are going to be discussing the brand new release MoonDial from Pat Metheny. I have with me Ken Cheshire. How's it going, Ken?
Going fine. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. And the one and only, the man of the hour, Jim Bricker. How's it going, Jim?
I'm doing okay. Happy that it's Friday and happy that it's a new Matheny day. So
There you go. There you go.
there we are.
Ladies and gentlemen, what to say about Pat Metheny? First of all, Moondial is Pat Metheny's 51st album that he has released overall. Um, this is his follow-up to his album Dreambox that was released last year in April of 2023. So, in terms of turnaround for releasing a new album, this is quite unexpected, even for Mr. Metheny when he was talking about it in his press junkets for the release of the new album. Um, 13 tracks, quite lengthy in terms of playing time, in terms of the tracks overall. Um all acoustic, done on a baritone guitar, a nylon string guitar. We will get into the album, just our first thoughts of the album, because again, it's brand new, just new to our ears. So, without further ado, I will pass the baton over to Ken.
Oh,
What are,
thank you.
there you go. What are your views on what you've heard
Well,
so
this
far?
is as a guitarist myself, this is where my geekdom comes in. The
I like
and that
that. Your
has to
geekdom. I like that.
has to do with the guitar itself. Um, Pat's been playing baritone guitars for years. Primarily, it's noticeable on his previous solo albums, One Quiet Night and What's It All About.
Hmm.
The difference of this one from his others is the fact, as you mentioned, this has nylon strings. That is unusual for a baritone guitar. And he had his friend and guitar maker, Lena Manzer, make this specifically so that he could use nylon strings.
Hmm.
Um, the problem with using nylon strings on a baritone guitar usually is that because of the tuning, which in a lot of common baritone guitar tunings, the middle two of the six strings are tuned up an entire octave.
That's right. That's right.
Here we go. Technical jargon, I'm appealing to all the other music geeks out there.
It's fine.
And the problem with that is with nylon strings, they break very easily. So you can't just take a regular baritone guitar and just slap nylon strings on it. So this guitar was made specifically for Pat for this reason. And he found a manufacturer of nylon strings, I think in Argentina. Is that
Yeah,
right?
Magma is the company. Yeah.
Yeah. That will not break. Um, because the tuning of the baritone guitar, one might not realize it from listening that it's anything other than just a regular guitar. Um, for nylon strings, this guitar sounds much brighter. And there's a couple of videos, or one video particularly that is on YouTube that Pat Metheny released, that where he's talking about what makes this guitar so special and what he loves about it. But a baritone guitar is usually tuned um, uh, at least a fourth, a fifth, or even a major third lower than a regular guitar. So it has a much mellower sound.
Mhm.
Um, and usually nylon strings have a very mellow sound anyway. But this guitar has a wonderful brightness to it. In that during the Dreambox tour, he would use this guitar. He said he started out just playing one song on it, and then as the tour went, he would add a second and third song. And by about halfway through the tour, he was playing 35 minutes worth of material on this guitar. Um, they had a break in the tour, and he took that opportunity to go into the studio for 2 or 3 days and knock this album out. It's him, the guitar, and a microphone. That's it. Um, he said one of the difficult things was to narrow it down to these 12 songs because he had developed so many. And
Yeah.
watching that video is fascinating because you can see how enthusiastic he is about this guitar and how much
Right.
that has prompted him to just constantly he's constantly playing it and coming up with things. Um, but anyway, that's the geek part. The baritone guitar is used a lot in country western music. Merle Haggard, Willie Nelson, Alan Jackson, and a lot of more contemporary country western artists too, because of that wonderful mellow sound that it has. It's also electric versions of the baritone guitar have been used quite a bit in even in heavy metal and quite a bit in rock. They'll usually only be used on maybe one or two songs in a gig or on an album rather than all through. So that's what makes this album also different because it's all played on this one guitar, unlike his other previous recordings.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, even
and there's a lot of the songs and the arrangements that he's used and played before. There's some jazz standards on here.
Yeah, he had said that. Sorry, not to cut you off. He
Yeah,
had said that he had played these songs in concert for quite some time before recording them.
yeah,
yep.
yeah. And he would uh, even songs that he's been playing, for decades. He would playing it on this guitar just made them like new. He would try different keys and different interpretations of the songs and whatever.
Yeah.
And and considering it's like I say, it's fun to watch him talk about this guitar because he's like a kid in a with a brand
He's
new
like a kid in
wonderful
the candy
toy.
store. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
really is. Yeah.
The songs on this album I find are uh, they're wonderfully varied in style and sound.
Mhm.
Um, for instance, the title song is he said he wrote that to just really show off everything this guitar can do. So both musically, harmonically, there are a lot of different chords and chord progressions and chord changes in this song. Um, like I say, for guitar players, it's really showing off the flexibility of this new guitar. And of course, the Pat Metheny fans know that he is all about non-standard guitars.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And and even others that was built for him by uh, Linda Manzer. So yeah, the album is just a wonderful collection of different styles, different flavors. Even though it's just him and acoustic guitar, it's they don't all sound the same. And
Right.
some songs take you back to certain styles of back in the 60s and 70s. Some sound very contemporary. Some sound like it's like, wow, that would work really well with a full band or ensemble or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and because his playing has always been to me, um, you always wonder listening to one of his solo albums, is there any dubbing on this? Which there rarely is, and there's no dubbing on this album. Even and listening to it sometimes sounds like that's got to be more than one guitar going on there. But no, that's
Right.
just the magic of Metheny's playing.
There's
So
been lots of interviews that Pat has done where people say that, he makes it look easy. And Pat will usually respond with, believe me, it's not. Because he basically talks about the fact that, he's got a whole lifetime of just practice and invention and exploration on all different types of guitars with all different types of music. So he might make it appear as if it's effortless, but he has put in a lot of sweat equity to get to
mhm,
where he is right now. So he can have
Definitely.
the technical facility to kind of pull this stuff off. And
mhm.
that's, kind of the interesting thing to me. Um, you know, about this album is that, as usual, Pat's playing is very, very deep. He wrenches so much from a melody with how many ways he can approach it with either meter or reharmonization or, just different explorations of just the melodic roots of it. And like you were saying, Ken, there's a lot of variety in this record, and it really is very much a surprise and delight. Talking about like the MoonDial song specifically, I it was the first single that came off of it, and so it was the first thing that the whole world heard from it, and it's got a lot of familiar trademarks about the way Pat approaches a song, but yet it's not redundant. It's not, oh, I've heard this before. It's hearing a Pat record like this, it's like a comfortable visit with an old friend who just happens to be a genius at his craft. It's very warm, but it's also very um, inspiring and uplifting at the same time. And this is coming from a guy who does not have, you know, the the technical appreciation for music and knowledge about music as you do. I'm coming at it from completely a neophyte standpoint. I mean, I know what I like, and I like it a lot. But so I guess it just speaks more to Metheny's prowess is that not only can he reach people at a technical level, the geek level, if you will, to use your words, but also just the music fan level who can just appreciate what it is that he's hearing without understanding, oh my gosh, that's baritone tuning, and that requires a whole different way of approaching the instrument on the fly, different from all the other instruments you have. You know?
I think you
Yeah.
and I are coming at it from the same perspective, that we're music fans. We're just novice music fans, and we know what we like when we hear it, And for me, with this album, reading up on it, and I was surprised the fact that, you know, he was inspired to go in the studio during the Dreambox tour. Like, he had played 60 dates at this point, and they took a break, and you would think, okay, I have a break now. I'm gonna go just sort of recharge my batteries. No, I'm going in the studio. I want to record some stuff.
Yeah,
Solely based on the fact that he had this new guitar
Mhm.
in his possession.
right.
And
Mhm.
he wanted to try it out in the studio, in terms of, let's see what I can do with this. And out comes this album of like, oh my God. Like, I mean, it's just, for me, it's an amazing piece of work.
Yeah.
It's a cohesive piece of work. Even more so than Dreambox. Um,
Mhm.
to an extent, because to me, and then I'll shut up for a bit because my throat's not. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm dealing with a bad head cold, so that's why I've been muting myself and coughing. So, Like back to the show. Um, to me, this album has a beginning, a middle, and an ending. And it, it works so well, and it flows so effortlessly, like from track to track. And again, each track is different. He takes a different approach and a unique approach to every piece of music that, he chose to record for this. And yeah, it's a fantastic album. It is. It is simply sublime, you know.
And I
Yeah.
think one of the strengths of the album is it's half of it is original tracks and the other half are covers.
Yeah.
And that's not unusual for him to cover, but I don't remember a particular album where there was, where it was 50-50 like that.
Right.
And especially considering what covers he chose to do.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, you have, well, just, a couple of them that I read up on. Your Everything, which is from Chick Corea.
yeah.
Um, and, Here, There, and Everywhere from Lennon and McCartney. I mean, just unreal, just like he's a very, Pat Metheny's never been one to do what was expected of him from either from the record company or from the media.
True.
He just did whatever the hell he wanted to do, and he still does that. And he's respected for it, you know. Um, uh, I'll ask the question and I will shut up for a bit. Are there any tracks on this album that stand out to either of you?
Jim?
Well, I've listened to this. This is pretty much the only thing I've listened to today. So I've probably made it through about 3 times. So this is very much still kind of like first impressions on the album. Um, I can't I can't say that there's anything that leaps out. Um, because they're all of just this incredible high quality, like we've been talking about. And I'm trying not to kind of just do fanboy gushing, trying to be objective here and there.
Oh,
The
you can
one thing
fanboy
that
gush now and again.
well, we have 2 whole videos of fanboy gushing about Metheny. Just let's try to be a bit more critical in our
Okay,
analysis
all
if we
right,
can here.
okay,
All right.
all right.
So I guess the one tune that stands out for me here is a song that's called Falcon Love. That's right in the middle of the album.
Mhm.
It's the longest tune on the album. To me, the first thing that I picked up on when I heard this is that this kind of sounds like an older PMG tune. And I found myself wondering, it's like, wow, what what could this have been like if it had, kind of that more cinematic PMG treatment? Um, for some Lyle May soloing or, keyboard Overheim arrangements or just some pads underneath to kind of, you know, give it that special blend that Pat and Lyle had together.
Yeah,
And that's not to say the song is bad. It's not at all. But then I picked up on some similarities to This Is Not America in some portions.
really.
And I don't know if it's the same chords or just the progressions through it. Ken, I don't know. Did you pick up on that at all?
No, but I haven't really had a chance to really dive into this
Okay.
solidly.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I made some notes about each of the tracks, but um, to me, that's the one that stands out as kind of different from the others. Is that I had that kind of PMG longing
hmm
that
hmm
that came from it.
hmm I can see that. Yeah.
Okay.
I, I think for me, of course, there was the expectation for the Lennon McCartney song because they released that video, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of jazz guitarists have been covering Lennon and McCartney songs, especially over the last 10 years. Al Di Meola has done 2 complete albums just himself.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
so And this one it just lends itself perfectly to this format, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's others. I really like the pairing of Everything Happens to Me and Somewhere. I wasn't looking at the title of the songs when I was first listening to it. The Somewhere is from West Side Story,
Yep.
and and it starts off Everything Happens to Me, and I didn't recognize the melody, but then it goes into the West Side Story Somewhere, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what's that? And
See, I
really
didn't
catches
even know
my
that.
attention.
Yeah.
Uh, After that is a song called Londonderry Air, which is just an old traditional English tune. And I love it when jazz musicians take those old traditional tunes and
Hmm.
and rework them and do it. Van Morrison specifically does it very well, especially
Right.
those old Irish tunes and stuff that
Well, let's talk
I
about
didn't.
Londonderry Air for a little bit. Can we
Okay,
just kind
yeah,
of double click
yeah,
on that
go,
a little bit?
yeah.
So,
Okay.
so other people would probably know this song as Danny Boy
Mhm.
because those are the lyrics that were applied to it. But the original tune back from the 1800s, didn't have any lyrics to it. And there's been all kinds of lyrics put to it over the years, whether it's folk songs or church hymns or whatever. But Danny Boy is the one that most people would probably know.
That's
Um,
true.
this is almost devoid of any kind of an Irish stamp to it. And again, I'm not saying that as a criticality. It's just that Pat was able to take his, Missouri, as he describes it, his Missouri roots and sort of apply them to this old Irish standard. And it's just a really compelling listen. It's like, once I did my research and then I could hear Danny Boy in it, but I don't think I would have picked it out unless I had done the research. It said Londonderry Air, actually was, Danny Boy, da 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 da. Again, there's just some really deep digging that Pat does when he plays things. He is not just playing the melody and laying it down and doing overdubs. It's like he is playing around it and just mining every bit of beauty that can come from that basic melodic curve.
What I do like about what he does is he's able to take pieces of music like these and reinterpret them with his own stamp, with his own flair and flavor,
Yeah, yeah.
and just make them sound very unique. You may have heard them thousands of times and over and over again, but he comes at it with a different approach, a very unique, different approach,
Yeah,
and he makes it his own.
And Here, There, and Everywhere, his cover is another great example of that because,
Yeah,
we all know the tune from it's Revolver, right? Check me, gut
yeah.
check me on this. I think it's from Revolver.
I think so. Yeah.
Um, you know, and we all know how it starts off, to lead a better life, I need my love to be there. Pat just does away with that. He also does away with the ending tag that McCartney had on it, where he sings, "You'll be there," and then here, there, and everywhere. He's just again, what Pat is doing is that he's taking the core of the verses and the bridge, and he's just kind of, he's not blazing his own trail because blazing, connotes this on fire sort of thing. He's sauntering on his own trail with this song, and again wrenching every bit of gorgeousness that can be wrenched from the basic melody that's here. It's just really fantastic stuff. It's totally faithful, but it's not some sort of weird carbon copy. It's not some hackneyed version of it. It's honoring to the original, but it's not treating it as a holy relic either.
Yeah. Well, and this is in the traditional of all the jazz greats who take material from other artists or even genres Jazz, the jazz greats took a lot from Broadway and movies and stuff like that,
Yeah.
where they wouldn't just recreate it, the version that everyone's familiar with. They will take the melody and everything else is different, but they keep the
Hmm.
melody. A lot of times they change the chord progression that's underneath it. The one thing when I listen to this version of Here, There, and Everywhere is um, there are musical spots that Harrison plays on guitar. Just this one spot where it's these chromatic chords. He goes through da 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 da, and it's so ingrained in my brain. When I don't hear it on this recording, it's just like, whoa, that's missing because
Hmm.
he's not just recreating,
Right.
the Beatles version of the song. And for instance, the song on here, "You're Everything," that's from the first Return to Forever album.
Yep.
I didn't
Light as a
even pick
feather.
up,
Yeah.
I didn't even pick up on that. I didn't realize it. And now and then reading the notes and whatever, I see that's what it is. Okay, I can hear that now,
See,
which makes
Yeah.
what
a lot of the reason
which really
why,
I can't wait to listen to Falcon Love, with this with your observation in mind.
you see, I just want to say a lot of the reasons why, artists do, restructure or reinterpret the, covers is they figure, why am I just going to recreate exactly from the original? You might as well just go listen to the original, so if I'm going to take a piece of music like, You're Everything or Here, There, and Everywhere, I want to make it unique and put my own stamp on it.
Hmm.
uh, Keep the integrity of the song, keep the
Right.
essence of the song, but deliver it in such a way that makes you look at it from a different angle,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And
And
that's what he
different,
does. That's what he
yeah.
does. Yeah.
And
Right.
different artists go about that differently. The kind of the extreme example that comes to mind for me is John Coltrane doing My Favorite Things. That is definitely one of the more out there interpretations of that song. Um, but you can't argue that he's not being faithful to the original. I mean, the core melodic structure is there, and he's just vamping on it. How many different choruses does he go through on it? Like 27, 57, something like that. It's like a 14-minute track. And but what Pat is doing is that again, he's honoring that basic melodic structure for all these songs that he's covering, and he is taking it new directions, but he's not being unfaithful to the core of what's going on in the original song. One of the latter tunes on the album here is Angel Eyes, which is another cover. It's another standard that first was written in the 40s and first gained notoriety in the 50s. Um, and I listened to a couple of other versions to try to get some context for what Pat was doing here. This song is really kind of disturbing.
Yeah.
You would think about, the angel eyes is kind of a sweet thing, but no, this is like sweet in the way that every breath you take is sweet. I mean, there's a bit of a
Okay.
sinisterness to
Okay.
to this to the song, and Pat finds that mystery, and he also kind of finds that longing that's in this tune. And he just kind of, as the song goes on, he just keeps diving deeper and deeper into finding the the disturbing portions of the song. And I don't mean that he goes into like song X territory or zero tolerance for silence territory. He's being very melodic, very accessible all the way through. But as the song keeps going on, it just feels kind of unrelenting. And again, that's all about his approach, his choices, it's not unrelenting, like all of a sudden he just picks up and starts strumming this thing a gajillion miles an hour. He's still plucking his way through the melody. It's just, I just don't know how else to describe it other than it's just very deep playing, and he really gets into the essence of the composition.
Yeah, because you wouldn't pick up on that aspect of the song listening to Frank Sinatra singing it. He and that's the first time I ever heard that song
Hmm.
was from Sinatra.
You see,
And
to me, a lot of
it
this is
sounds
new.
like any other Torch song.
Right.
A lot of this is new to me in terms of Angel Eyes, etc. I didn't know that these were, again, standards, etc. So you're teaching me a lot here by discussing this.
We're
So
three guys talking about music. We're going to
that's
learn
right.
things.
That's right.
Yeah, no. Yeah, Jim, the one piece that you mentioned my favorite things. The one
Yeah.
tune that comes to mind as far as a wide variety of interpretations from jazz artists is "Summertime"
Yes.
from Gershwin
Mm.
Hmm.
and from Porgy and Bess. I mean, the masters of jazz have done that in so many different ways, where it's originally just a very mournful, ballad to being interpreted as these upbeat toe tapping versions. But there again, they're focusing on what the core of the song is, that melody.
Hmm.
And so whenever I see someone, they've recorded "Summertime," it automatically makes me curious of what this
Sure.
take is going to be. And I agree with you, Armando. Uh, Artists that they're going to cover a song and they do it just like the original. Um, uh, what comes to mind is Tears for Fears did a cover of a David Bowie song,
Ashes to ashes.
Ashes to Ashes. And on first listening, wasn't until the vocals come in that you could even tell it wasn't the original. It is so incredibly close. The only difference
Yeah.
is you can tell a difference in the vocals.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
got
Okay.
So
and but by saying that, I gotta tell you, they knocked that cover out of the park. They did a
absolutely,
fantastic version of Ashes to Ashes.
absolutely.
And guys, if you want to hear that, it's on a B-sides compilation release. I can't, it was released in 1996. I can't remember the name right now. It escapes me, but look it
It's
up.
a weird titled
Wonderful.
album.
It is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Saturine and like two or three other
Lunar
names.
There you
Lunar
go. The man of the
Saturine.
hour. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, in terms of what I just said about reinterpreting a cover song, uh, the only example that comes to my mind right now when about two artists that did the same song, but to me did them totally completely different, is when I mentioned Bette Midler doing Twisted on her self-titled, and having Joni Mitchell do it on Court and Spark a year later. To
Mhm.
me, I prefer the Bette Midler version to the Joni Mitchell version because Bette Midler, she just took it to a whole new level in terms of just her vocal gymnastics on the
Hmm.
track, right?
Sure.
Straight up jazz, just but she delivered it the only way that Miss M could do it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
When I listen to, no disrespect to Joni Mitchell, please, I don't want people saying, you're an SOB because you're going after Joni Mitchell.
You
Don't.
call yourself a Canadian? How dare you?
Exactly, exactly. I'm part of a new breed. But when I hear the Joni Mitchell version, it just leaves me a bit flat in terms of compared to the way Bette Midler did it.
Mhm.
Um, but that's just an artist, I guess, their decision to do a song the way they want to do it. I like artists that take chances, in
Mhm.
Yeah.
terms of how they want to interpret a song. And again, Metheny is one that takes chances.
He
I
does
mean,
he does take chances, but I was trying to think about his his track record of like reinventing songs. The only one that kind of stands out to me, and I might be forgetting it, other examples here, is when he reinvented Last Train Home, which people can argue is like his biggest hit,
hmm
into, a solo baritone acoustic guitar piece, which he featured as opening all the Speaking of Now shows. He would come out and play, you just sit out alone on the stage and play, just start playing this baritone guitar figure. And people finally figured out that he was playing, just a very
Yeah.
solo, simple solo
stripped down
acoustic version
version.
of Last Train
Stripped
Home.
down version,
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I'm trying to think of other I mean, usually he's pretty faithful. He might change a few things about an arrangement here or there. Like Third Wind, he would change in concert, or The Fields, the Sky, Straight on Red, things like that. But he wouldn't do anything as radical as what he did of like taking a very orchestrated tune like Last Train Home and do it as acoustic version. I think he does that very rarely.
But on the flip side of that coin, he has said he likes to pick songs, or even likes to write songs that he can play with them. He can rearrange them.
Sure.
He can and like so that the way you hear it on record isn't the set way to do it. Like he can play with the arrangement. He can play with the tuning. Um,
Mhm.
I do remember him saying that what he liked about this guitar that he's using, that what inspired him to do the MoonDial album, was that with this guitar he could do a lot of open air, if that's the proper term, open air tuning for the pieces, which to him gave him a lot of freedom, a lot of space, a lot of
Sure.
movement within the arrangement. So
Hmm.
again, guys, I'm a novice. I'm not a musician. I'm not a professional of anything about music. I just know what I like. So,
Right.
but
I think it
MoonDial,
kind of depends on the type of tune that Pat does.
yeah,
For many years in the 90s, the band would cover How Insensitive, whether that was the Secret Story band, I think when they first played it, or PMG on a couple of tours, and then he would do it in some of his trio tours. And if there was any song in a Pat Metheny group set that had the capability of kind of going off script, it was usually How Insensitive. And it wouldn't be radical. It would just be like Pat's just, he and Paul Wernico are just totally locked in sync, and they're going to take a whole another one or two choruses on it. So it's not like Pat would ever enter like jam band territory, because I think he likes he likes the idea, and this is based on seeing him 2 dozen times and hearing umpteen shows. He he
yeah,
he likes to have it planned out. To him, it seems like an album is, or a performance is much like an album. It's got a beginning and a middle and an end. And he wants to be very careful about how he guides the audience um, through the performance. Now, if it's not a PMG and it's just like Pat Metheny as a trio or Pat doing a solo thing, then he's got a lot more freedom there. I mean, the point about how he started to use the nylon baritone guitar more and more as the tour went on, that's a
yeah,
great example of him kind of going with his muse, because the format of the show allowed that. And I think that's kind of just where Pat's head is that he's going to do things that are appropriate for the moment. He's not all of a sudden going to turn whatever quartet he's working with into a jam band.
yeah,
That's not how he operates.
yeah. No, what I think you're saying is he likes things structured, but not overly so. He also likes for there to be room to play with things and experiment and go off on a bit of a musical tangent here and there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
but still maintaining the essence of the show or of the performance of what
Right.
it is he's doing. So,
Hmm.
Well, even within the Pat Metheny group, um, he didn't play the same solo every time. You know, you
Yeah,
have
that's true.
the solid structure of the song. And the amazing thing about uh, the songs with Pat Metheny group, if you look at the chord progression um, of any particular song, it's basically taking those 32 bars or 16 or whatever and just doing them over and over and over again. The thing is, every time they do it, they change things up.
there's
So
a
it
different
sounds like
flavor
it's more
to it.
through composed, but the structure is very solid there.
Right.
So when it's time for Lyle Mates to do a piano solo or Metheny a guitar solo, they've got those 32 bars that stays the same, but just but they just do something different with the solo, which to me is as equally and sometimes more impressive than something that is, flying by the seat of your pants,
Hmm.
because it's
Sure.
being improvisational within a solid structure, and that's not easy to do.
I think that's the trick of it, though, to be able to do that and make it look effortless.
Oh
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
Well, it goes back to the comment that I was making earlier, is that, he makes it seem effortless, but he's got, X many hours of sweat equity per day
yeah,
through almost his entire life that he's put into it. So
yeah,
it comes across as effortless.
yeah.
well, he's a perfectionist. He is
Oh
Indeed.
an
yeah.
example of a
Oh yeah,
perfectionist.
definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, I saw in an interview once that he says when he's preparing to go on stage, he doesn't feel ready to play a song live until he can sit there and play the song in all 12 keys.
Right. I think I've heard that.
Technically, that's absolute madness. I mean, that is, and he practices, 5 hours a day
Well, let's
at
put it
least.
this way. He is someone that will, to use the term, fly by the seat of his pants, but on his terms
Sure.
in terms of
Hmm.
music. You know what I mean?
Well, he's got the
Right.
Um,
track record to back it up.
oh yeah. Oh
Darn
yeah.
right.
No. And just a little plug here, guys. If you want to check out Pat Metheny live, check out his album Travels that Jim has mentioned before, and which I will be picking up because I just got paid today. That's another issue altogether. Um, so yeah, no, my friend, no. But again, he is someone that will again fly by the seat of his pants, but again on his own terms. Like you said,
Right.
he'll learn a song in and out, inside and out, and then play it because then he knows he's got avenues to play with it, to stretch it out, to go into different areas, but bring it back when he wants to, bring it back to the essence of the song when he wants to.
Yeah.
So that's the mark of a of a professional, of aficionado
Sure.
in terms of whatever instrument you want to use.
Well,
Right.
when you're talking about an artist that um, has won 20 Grammy Awards, 39 Grammy Award nominations, with the Pat Metheny Group, they won 7 in a row, 7 consecutive albums. All Grammy Awards. Um, the group has won a total of 10,
Mm.
3 gold albums, Downbeat Hall of Fame, National Endowment for the Arts, the Royal Swedish Academy. His debut album, Bright Side's Life, is in the Library of Congress
I was
National
reading that.
Recording
Yeah.
Registry. I
Yep.
mean, that's not like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, in which, in 20 years everybody will be in there. It's ridiculous. And I mean, he's been not just Grammys, but nominated in 13 different categories.
Yeah.
That's madness. And he's one
Yeah.
in 10 of them. No
Yeah.
other artist has ever done that. And I was looking at the tour dates um that he's getting ready to start on. They're all in Europe
Yeah.
so far. I mean,
Yeah.
he's constantly touring, but just not that much of it is in the US. I'm not sure if that's because jazz is not as big in the US overall,
Hmm.
or if it's just he's kind of like the jazz musician.
Well, he's
And
kind of already toured the US because, it's weird because, you know, MoonDial came about while he was doing Dreambox. So he's out
right,
there promoting Dreambox, and then all of a sudden, this vision appears for, another album to do. And
Mhm.
he rushes right into his little home studio and, bangs it out.
yeah,
And I think, in the fall of 2023, when those 60 dates that Armando was talking about, those were all US dates. Then he played some dates in Japan in 2024, came back to the US, did another run of dates, and I think he took the summer off.
Mhm.
And,
yeah,
and now he's going to Europe and kind of continuing the Dreambox, MoonDial tour. Um,
Yeah.
it is I did not have the luxury of going to see him the last time he was through town, but people who were there, did say that, he played, there was a lot of stuff that he was playing on the baritone with the nylon string. So
yeah,
the medley of Everything Happens to Me Here, There, and Everywhere and Somewhere, he played that.
Yeah.
Um, there's another song on the album called Lacrosse
Yeah.
that
yeah.
It's the second track on the
played.
album.
Second track.
Yeah. He was playing Londonderry Air in the spring. So, he's been out there, exercising, these tunes and getting them out in front of an audience. And I would anticipate that the fall tour in Europe is probably feature, a little more of the baritone. I mean, Lord knows what he's discovered
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
since
What
since
I've
then.
what I found interesting, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Jim. What I found interesting
Oh,
was that he was saying that he this obviously this must have been on the Dreambox tour. He started out using the nylon guitar for one song, and then it stretched to 35 minutes of playing time on during the set.
Yeah.
So
yep.
you could obviously, the more he was playing it, the more he fell in love with the guitar. It was like, I can, you know, this is something that I can get into and I can, uh, explore more. So I mean,
Yeah,
you are witnessing somebody who was literally falling in love with an instrument, in terms of
absolutely.
usage.
Yeah, he he
So
he took in the press kit that came out when the album was announced. Pat was saying that he experienced a revelatory flash similar to the one that he discovered back with the Roland guitar synth in the late 70s and early 80s. And he was saying, quote, "There's suddenly a whole new palette of sound under my fingers, just like that."
yeah,
And what resulted from that, I got this quote from the same press kit, and I just think it describes the album so well. Go figure. Um, Pat saying the central vibe, for this record is one of resonant contemplation. This guitar allows me to go deep. This is him saying it, deep to a place that I maybe have never quite gotten to before. This is a dusk to sunrise record, hardcore mellow. Maybe that's the tagline for the
There you go.
for your video for
I
this.
got it.
Pat Metheny,
I
hardcore
just thought
mellow.
about it. I got it. Well, okay, I'm gonna give you my impression on this album, but first I want to ask you guys, I mean, he started using the guitar synthesizer in Synclavier. Do you think that is an artist that fell into the quote unquote trap of using the instrument too much? Did it use him or did he use it?
I think he used it. I mean, he didn't abandon everything else. Okay, I think he wielded it like the way a carpenter knows what tool to use to get the job done. I think
Mhm.
you know Pat pulls that out to play the right kinds of songs.
Okay. But you see
I
where I'm
have
going with,
to,
you see where I'm going with that question though. I
yeah.
mean,
I think so.
Well, that's a good question because Jim, what album did he start using that on? Do you remember?
It was off ramp. But
Off
I
Ramp.
think he started using it on the 80-81 tour.
Yeah.
But I think the first album that you heard it on was off.
I think because when I bought Off Ramp, it's like I'm going, wait a minute, where's the guitar? There's a lot of times in the Metheny group albums that you're really not sure if a particular line is being played on a keyboard synthesizer or on the
a
guitar.
guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, right, right.
And I was like, trying to figure it out. Um, Again, as a guitar player, I particularly love I I love that guitar sound that he was so good at. And it,
Mhm.
it honestly took me a while to get used to, the other sounds that he was getting.
That's
Um,
interesting.
and because because after, the first few albums, when he was, playing phase dance and all that stuff, just with a regular guitar setting, there was that expectation. And
Hmm.
like I say, I love this. I love the sound of jazz guitar. Um,
Hmm.
and so it's like, okay, there's a flavor that's not there. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. But of
Hmm.
course, repeated listening, and once I got over that preconceived expectation, it's like, hey, that's fantastic, because he could do stuff with that he couldn't come anywhere near doing, with the regular guitar setting. And in a way, this album that we're talking about now kind of is going back to some of the beginnings um, in many ways. I mean, like I say, we're talking
Yeah.
about a guitar and a microphone, no
Yep.
dub, no other instruments. That's about as raw as you can get. And
Mm.
uh, imagine, I mean, he's been recording for almost 50 years now.
Since
Yeah.
74, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
50
74
yeah.
years.
years.
And
74.
so think about playing, even though his catalog is vast, hundreds
Yep.
of songs,
Jesus
Lots of
Christ.
and
styles.
yeah, lots of styles. But and that's what's exciting about this album is that he's excited about it.
Hmm.
Because imagine playing, the same things, and it only makes sense that he would, you know, um, play some of his standards and find different ways to play it. Because after a while, it's like, here we go again. That's why a lot of popular artists, don't play any of their old hits anymore. They're just tired of doing it, you know,
Well,
uh,
the
that
reason
many
why,
times a year.
yeah, the reason why I asked the question about, whether or not did he use, the Synclavier or did the Synclavier use him? Y- In the 80s, a lot of artists fell into the trap of, excuse me, of the 80s production.
Sure.
Okay. And they had a hell of a hard time coming out of that trap,
Mhm.
right?
Sure.
Mhm.
So that's why my question was, do you think that yes, he used the synclavier in his recordings, but that's why my question was, do you think that he used the synclavier or did the synclavier use him? Like he didn't,
Hmm.
to my estimation, to what I'm hearing, he didn't fall into that trap
No.
No, I
at
don't think he
all,
did.
at
I mean,
all.
because he
Yeah.
continued to use it, but he didn't use it the same way every time.
Exactly,
Right.
That's just
Right.
exactly,
it. Yeah.
exactly. I think with this album, and then I will give you my opinion on this album. because everyone else is giving theirs overall. But I think with this album, I think that he has brought everything back home, back to the heart, back to the essence of what music is for him, right? He has stripped away everything else, and you know, all the labels like world music, etc., are gone. This is just him with his guitar and what he feels in his heart and his
Yep.
soul.
And he's just exploring where the instrument will take him and where the melodic line of whatever song will lead him. And
Exactly.
again, the amazing thing is that he has the technical capacity to go damn near anywhere. I mean, I
Exactly.
think he's only limited by his imagination. I mean,
Hmm.
he would probably disagree with me and say, "No, Jim, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about." And I don't, because I'm not a musician. But from from the fan point of view of just hearing how deep, he can play into these things, it goes back to the quote. He sure makes it seem easy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and in terms of this album overall, I mean, I've listened to it 3 times. Um, oh my God. I am one that I've said before, music puts me in a certain mood, a certain frame of mind. Um, and for me, this is an album that you can put on, you sit back, just turn off the lights, and the only light in the room is the components off the stereo. And there were, just a little side note, there were many nights like this when I was like 4 years old and my sisters were listening to music, and the only light that was on in the room was the light coming off of that old, like the old stereo unit that my parents had. And you just sit back and you just let the music wash over you. And it takes you on a journey,
Yep.
right? This album starts off with the title track, MoonDial. It takes you on a journey through lacrosse, your everything, here, there, and everywhere. You know, Other songs of note, for me, this belongs to you, My Love and I, and it just through Angel Eyes, and it brings you right back to the very beginning with
Yep.
Moondale Epilogue. It takes you on a ride,
Hmm.
and you never know, you don't know where you're going to end up. Sorry, guys, but you know that you're safe on this ride
Yeah.
and that you're going to
Yeah.
enjoy it,
Hmm.
and it's going to
There
be
was
a
a
part of you.
Yeah. Sorry to jump in there,
No,
Armando.
no,
There
no.
was a comment I wanted to make about another one of the songs that's again about midway through the album. It's called "We Can't See It, But It's There."
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of a short sketch of a tune
It's
that's
like, yeah,
really
two
more about,
minutes. Yeah.
yeah, it's really more about mood than it is melody. I mean, it's not, there's not something you kind of whistle walking down the street to it. It's
No,
not
no,
that
no. I
kind
was
of
gonna
song.
say, sorry, I was gonna say that, yeah, it's a sketch of a tune. He doesn't
Mhm.
really get into it too much, but there's a bit of an ominous feeling about it to me.
Yeah. Hmm. But that kind of goes with this whole vibe of this record. I mean, again, going back to the Pat quote that I read, it's like resonant contemplation, going deep. This is a dusk to sunrise kind of record. This record is, I think, all it's all about exploration of a certain mood. And I think that the combination of the Manzer guitar, the baritone guitar, the tuning, and the nylon strings has just given him a vehicle to kind of just run wild within this particular wheelhouse. Pat
Right.
has run wild in all kinds of different ways, zero tolerance for silence. But this is a way that's um, probably more successful just because it's more accessible.
I would agree. I would agree. Again, and that's not to say that Dreambox is not a good album, because it is.
Right.
It's very
I
good.
just look at this MoonDial is more of a cohesive piece of work.
Hmm.
There's a message behind it. I mean, the songs are there. They're placed where they are in the sequence for a reason. They're not
Yeah,
just put there just to fill some time slots and spots
right.
and stuff, just to fill up some space on the disc. They're there for a reason. And that makes it an overall, again, I hate to reuse this word, but a cohesive piece of work. This isn't an
Sure.
album that, to me, from my experience, this is not an album that you can cherry pick tracks and say, okay, I'll just listen to this. You need to listen to this album from start to finish,
Sure.
right? Um, and take from it what you will, you know? I mean,
Yeah, and the thing that makes me wondering is like, what the heck is on the cutting room floor? I mean, if this is the vibe that Pat wanted to go for, and he achieved it excellently, then maybe, again, just maybe the cutting room floor is filled with songs that are more joyful. There maybe songs that have a bit more, opulence or, happiness to them that are magnificent in their own right, but they didn't fit in within the confines of what was sort of screaming to be released, here.
if that is the case, he could have done a double album and subtitled each disc for the head and for the heart,
Yeah,
because then,
probably.
you know what I
Who
mean?
knows?
Because
Yeah.
it's
Well,
just, I
this
don't
is a
know.
double vinyl. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, because
But yeah, I
songs are
get
quite lengthy in terms of, um,
sure. Sure.
you know, vinyl play, but
Well, if
It's
anyone
it,
finds that they love this album that is not familiar with Pat Metheny, I highly recommend also One Quiet Night and What's It All About. There's a lot of baritone
yep,
guitar on those too. And we've
right.
talked a fair amount on this video about him doing covers. What's It All About is an album of covers and
Entirely of covers. Yeah.
entirely of covers. And I love that album so much, even though I did not know all of the songs on it ahead of time.
Hmm.
It's not obvious covers. There are some, but some that's like, where did he dig this out of? But yet, with his own style, it's just wonderful. And all three, those two albums and this one are the perfect, like you say, Armando, just with the light, if you've got a lava lamp, that's even better. And just let it soak. I have a friend that is going through a lot of family troubles and strife. And I sent the link to the Spotify of those two albums. And she said those have helped her through this hard time
mhm.
because it helped
Yeah.
her relax, when her anxiety was just up through the roof.
Yeah.
And so
It
that's
does. Music does
and
help.
I
Yeah.
think that's the way Matheny is anyway.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Well, just a side note, there were many nights that, my sisters had to rock me to sleep. And you're talking like I was 3 or 4 years old at the time. And many a night I was rocked to sleep and with music playing very low, but the music was playing. And all I remember was that light coming off of that stereo. And
Yep.
it's burned into my memory, like bank.
Me
It's
too.
there. And it's a part of me. And this is an album for that, like
Yeah,
just to sit
it is.
back and just let the music wash over you. Like I said, corny term, but it's true, guys.
It's true.
Everyone watching, it's true. You
It's
just
true.
let it wash over you. Forget what's going on outside. Forget the world
Hmm.
outside for now. Like, I mean, there's a lot of crap going on in the world right now. Uh, this is an album to take you and let you forget for X amount of time that you want to forget for a while and just
Yep.
enjoy. No questions, no explanations, no deep concepts, just musical enjoyment. And that's what it's about.
Yep. But what's also interesting about this album is as much as you can just let it wash over you, you can also wade chin deep into every track and
Mhm.
really get a lot out of the performance and interpretive aspect of what he does. So that's, you know, uh, again, that the amazing thing about Pat is that he makes it seem so darn simple.
But it's not.
Exactly. Yeah. It's simple because he's put, 55 plus years of sweat equity into mastering this instrument the way Steinbeck mastered the English language. I mean, that's how he interprets things. Is that in interviews, people will ask Pat, like, why did you choose this chord over or this one? And he said, well, why did you choose to use that adverb in that sentence?
Yeah.
For him, music, the performance of music is just like speaking. It just comes as natural
It's
and
natural. It's natural.
flowing just from him as people would in conversation.
I'm going to put this out there.
Do
I
it.
think, I think that in terms of a musical contemporary to Pat Metheny, in terms of the pop rock genre, I think that Lindsey Buckingham, as a musician and a guitarist, is right up there with Pat Metheny
Hmm.
because he is very intricate in his playing in terms of electric and acoustic guitar. He doesn't do anything half measured. He always knows what he wants to do, and he does it with precision, just like Metheny, and he does it with finesse.
Mhm.
Okay, now I'm going to get smacked around verbally in the comments, but that is I mean, I've seen Fleetwood Mac live in concert a few times, old man that I am. I'm just saying, again, totally different music genre, but I would love to see both of them on a stage with an acoustic guitar in each hand. Go. Let's see what you can do. Can you imagine what kind of a night that would be?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet Jesus. I need a cigarette just by thinking about that kind of shit. Like I'm telling you. Like it is that I'm sorry. That is what I think. Yeah, I don't know what made me think about that, but he again back to Matheny, he is unique, and that's putting him mildly in terms of a musician, in terms of what he can do, in terms of his
Absolutely.
approach, and in terms of his love of music, and is just he is one that lives and breathes and eats music. That's him. It's his essence.
That's right.
Right. And even if you look at just the albums that he's put out since he's been under the banner of, you know, BMG slash modern recordings, I
Yes,
mean, they're all different. I mean, the first album, Road,
the road
I forget
home,
the name of it. No,
the road
I
to
forget the
no,
name of it. I'm sorry about that.
road to
It's
here,
it's
road to the
Motif.
sun.
Road to the Sun.
Oh yeah.
Road to the Sun. It's
I have it.
basically, classical type compositions, for other guitarists to play, including a guitar quartet. So that's his first album. His second one was the Side Eye Trio, recorded live. The fourth one is Dreambox, which is his quiet electric guitar album. And now he's followed it with a quiet acoustic guitar album. And this is probably the closest he's come to being redundant, but even this is not it's not redundant.
No,
It's
no.
a whole different tone and timbre um to it. And
Yeah.
again, it just speaks to how deeply creative and effective he is, that he can just pull off, all these things, one after the other. Kind of makes me scared for what's coming next.
True enough. I was just thinking, do you know if there is any official or unofficial Pat Metheny box set that is out there? Like, can
Nope.
you imagine? Just imagine what would make the cut for such a set to come out.
Well, I'll tell you a story. The closest thing I know to sets that are out there are some things that have been fan produced. And this was called I guess it was the late 90s. There was a fan driven initiative called the Metheny Audio Archive Project, MAP, MAAP. And what they did was to try to take some of the more, you know, great sounding Metheny shows that are out there and either try to, present them to the masses, if you
Yeah.
will, the masses being, folks on the internet. And in two cases, they did PMG companions. Now, what these were songs that the Pat Metheny group performed, but never made it onto Travels, never made it on the road to you. So they were never officially released. So might interest people to know that from the Still Life Talking album, um, uh, gosh, now the title just leaves me. There's tracks off Still Life Talking that were performed as early as 1981.
Okay.
The basic theme of the Way Up album from 2005 was done by the original Pat Metheny group, quartet with Mark Egan and Danny Gottlieb.
Ooh, okay.
There's, you know, they're performing covers, they're performing originals that were never released. Um, Basically, there were 5 discs in all. There was Volume 1, which was 3 discs, Volume 2, which was made up entirely of recordings from the 1981 and 1982 PMG tours. Um, the Pat Metheny group performing Mars, which came to be called Close to Home on Lyle Mays' first album. Um, Fantastic stuff. Versions of Keith Jarrett tunes that they would do live.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
it's if you can find it, it's good stuff.
All right.
That's the closest thing I know of to like a treasure trove of box set, and oh my gosh, what could be. Um, on Pat's website, he also there's this feature there that's called question and answer, where it's people ask him questions, and when he feels like answering it, he'll answer. He hasn't touched it since like 2013, but there for a while he was, pretty regular about answering things. I think it just kind of depends on what his mood was and if he was available. And I
Okay.
actually asked him one time about, official bootlegs and all that kind of stuff. And he wrote back and it's kind of like, man, I don't know, I feel like I'm around so much of the stuff. I don't know if anyone has any interest, and it's kind of the same night to night and da 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 da. And he ended it by saying, but on the other hand, we have a whole ton of tapes.
It's
So
just it,
Sure.
right? I mean, a lot of some of these artists think that if they release these tapes or this unreleased stuff, where do you go from there? Right? They always want to hold something back, like in terms of like, oh, I've got something in my goodie bag kind of thing, or like I've got something I can use on a rainy day kind of thing. But yeah,
yeah.
as a fan, you want to hear this stuff.
Oh
You,
yeah.
so yeah, no, I understand that. I understand that.
Thanks.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Album discussion.
No,
Sorry, go
I
ahead.
got one more thing I want to throw out there, which Ken kind of opened the door to. So
Sorry.
Ken, we were talking about interpretations of jazz standards.
Mhm.
We talked about Summertime.
Mhm.
Here's my trivia question for you guys. On what album does Pat play on Summertime?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. Ken's thinking.
I think I used to know it, but yeah.
So in the late 80s and 90s, Pat had a member of his band by a guy named Mark Ledford, who was a trumpet player, vocalist. As Pat says, it's the best whistler that he's ever heard in his life. Mark Ledford had a solo album, which has a version of Summertime on it. And it's him playing trumpet, and Pat is underneath just jamming away on his with that classic Metheny sound.
Wow.
And it's got kind of a trip hop groove over the top of it. And so it's one of the most atypical versions of Summertime I've ever heard, but it's a groovy little version. Mark Ledford is
did not know that.
is the artist.
Redford. Okay,
Sweet.
I'll look it up. I will look it up.
YouTube, here we come.
Yep.
Oh
Now
boy.
you can end the show now that I was able to play Trivia
No,
Master.
I apologize. I didn't know you had that question out there to put out there.
We were winging this episode from the beginning.
There you go. There you go. Well, there I was hacking away at the beginning of it.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings our discussion of MoonDial to an end. So please let us know down in the comments below, down there, what you think of MoonDial. Again, it was just released today on Modern Recordings through BMG Music Management, sorry. And again, let us know what you think. We think it's a fantastic album. We'd like to know what your take on it is. Okay. I want to thank Jim and Ken for joining me on this episode. Again, with these episodes, we would like to get a dialogue going. So please chime in, let us know what you think. We're not experts by any stretch of the imagination. We just know what we like when we hear it. And we like to share it with you all out there. All right. So for Jim and Ken, I'm Armando. Trying not to cough my lungs out right now. And we're going to end this show, and we'll see you soon, very soon, with a new series coming up starting August 1st. 31 perfect albums. Yep. Stay tuned for that. It was a hell of a series to tape, and we hope you enjoy it. So have a good day. Please look after yourselves and one another. Please click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content they've got coming up. There are more shows in the can that we're going to do, and we will bring them to you as soon as we can. Have a good night. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.